We're exploring the intensely controversial second marriage of Joanie Lamb. She's the widow of Marcus Lamb and the president of the Daystar television network, to a psychologist named Doug Weiss.
Right.
We're going to examine how that single, seemingly personal relationship triggered this massive domino effect, like a chain reaction that just rippled through her family, the boardroom, the network, and honestly, the entire ecosystem of Christian media.
Which makes this just a profoundly fascinating case study, because if you only glance at the headlines, you might mistake this for mere tabloid gossip.
Totally.
But it's fundamentally about the architecture of trust. We're looking at what happens when a media ecosystem built entirely on donor trust, absolute moral authority, and perceived theological purity suddenly collides with messy, real-life human timelines.
Right. Now, a quick caveat as we dive into this. To you listening, our goal here isn't to play judge and jury. We're absolutely not taking any sides, and nothing we discuss here constitutes a legal finding of wrongdoing. We are just impartially unpacking the facts and the reporting exactly as it stands.
And setting that baseline is so crucial because the narratives get incredibly tangled. But at the very center of this tangle is, well, it's a simple issue of chronological math.
Yes, the timeline. The public backlash was really sparked by the calendar. So let's look at the facts of that timeline to understand why the audience reacted the way they did.
Okay.
Marcus Lamb tragically passes away from COVID-19 complications in November of 2021. The shockwaves are, massive. But then within roughly a year of his passing, Joanie and Doug Weiss are dating. And they actually marry on June 30, 2023.
Right. And, a quick remarriage for a widow might raise some eyebrows on its own.
Yeah, sure.
But the real combustion here isn't just about how quickly Joanie moved on. The core complication is Doug Weiss's timeline.
Let's get into that.
So, Doug had been married to his wife Lisa for over 30 years. According to the records, he divorces her in May 2022. But he doesn't publicly announce that divorce until February of 2023.
Wow. So you have an 8-month gap where essentially nobody knows he is a divorced man.
Exactly.
And during that exact same window, he's acting as a professional counselor, right? Actively advising couples on marriage and intimacy while simultaneously beginning to date Joanie. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the counseling aspect, it's basically like a fitness trainer who is secretly eating junk food every single night, but they're still charging clients premium rates for a strict health regimen.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. Like if I am paying for intensive marriage counseling, I'm expecting radical transparency. How did his clients react to paying for marriage counseling from a man who was hiding his own recent divorce?
Well, as you can imagine, the reaction detailed in the reporting was devastating. Clients felt what they described as re-traumatized.
Re-traumatized.
Yeah. Because you have to remember, people weren't just going to him for casual chats. Many were attending these expensive counseling intensives, dealing with severe trauma like infidelity or addiction.
So they are incredibly vulnerable.
Exactly. And several former clients told the press that during those intensives, again while he was secretly divorced, they felt blamed and shamed by him for their own failing marriages. It completely destroyed his professional credibility overnight.
But Joanie's perspective on this is completely different. And I think we need to look at her personal defense here, because she didn't view this timeline as scandalous at all.
Not at all.
To her, this was just life. She argued that grief is deeply unique to the individual. But the detail that really stands out is this memory she shared. She recalled that Marcus himself had told her in front of their kids that if anything ever happened to him, he would want her to remarry.
Which is an incredibly heavy, just profoundly intimate thing for a dying spouse to say. From a human perspective, you absolutely understand why she held on to that. It was her emotional shield against the criticism.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But the friction happens because, in the Daystar world, personal justifications don't necessarily override public theology. And that brings us to Jimmy Evans.
Right, Jimmy Evans.
He is a massive figure in this space, a prominent pastor who actually officiated their wedding, and his involvement caused a total theological earthquake among the viewers.
It did, because Evans was the head of XO Marriage, which is one of the biggest marriage seminar organizations in the country. When someone of his stature officiates a wedding, he's effectively blessing the union. He's giving it theological legitimacy.
And for conservative viewers who condemn divorce and remarriage, blessing a union with a recently secretly divorced man was just a massive compromise.
Exactly. The fallout was so bad that Evans eventually had to step back from his leadership role at XO Marriage due to the intense backlash from his own audience.
Wow. But that timeline issue, which created a moral problem for the audience, quickly pivoted into a major financial problem. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah, the finances.
According to the Roy's report, they found roughly $100,000 charged to Joanie Lamb's Daystar company credit card for a luxury resort in Mexico.
$100,000.
Yeah. Charges made in October 2022 and May 2023, which was right ahead of their July 2023 honeymoon at that exact same resort.
Now, Joanie flatly denied that Daystar money paid for the trip. She called the online claims a total falsehood.
But then her own son, Jonathan Lamb, suggested she reimburse the ministry after the fact. And Daystar later confirmed the costs were indeed reimbursed, adding that a board member reportedly gifted part of the trip.
We got back from our honeymoon. It was in July. And by the way, there are questions about, it's all over the internet, that Daystar paid $100,000 for my
Yes, I
honeymoon.
was getting ready to ask you about that.
So absolutely not. Not one penny of Daystar's money was used for our honeymoon. We paid for our honeymoon, okay? So again, that's another lie that's out there.
Right.
But hold on, let me push back on this reimbursement defense.
Go for it.
If I put a $100,000 luxury vacation on my corporate card and I only pay it back after the auditors or the public notice, doesn't that fundamentally break a donor's trust? Like, regardless of whether the money was returned eventually?
What's fascinating here is that this is exactly how watchdog groups viewed it. In the nonprofit world, commingling funds like that is a massive red flag.
Right.
Ministry Watch, a major transparency organization, actually gave Daystar its lowest possible transparency grade and issued a withhold giving recommendation over this.
A withhold giving label. That is brutal for a donor-funded network.
It's the strongest warning they have. And longtime donors saw it. Some who had been giving since 1997 demanded their contributions back.
Since 1997.
Yeah. And Daystar refused to return the money.
That is just crazy. But as intense as that financial dispute was, it wasn't just external. The dispute over the honeymoon finances was being driven by internal family warfare. And this brings us to the most severe allegations in the source material.
It really does.
Now, I want to handle this next section with immense care. To you listening, I want to reiterate that while these disputes collided in the public eye, they involve entirely different standards of proof.
Yes, that is a very important distinction to make.
In 2023, Joanie's son Jonathan and his wife Susie accused Joanie of covering up sexual abuse allegations regarding their 5-year-old daughter.
It's just horrific to even process.
It is. Now, Jonathan had publicly opposed the Vice marriage from the start, but Daystar fully denied the cover-up, calling the claims unequivocally false. Texas police actually investigated, and they closed the investigation in May 2025 due to insufficient evidence.
Right.
But then, Jonathan was fired from Daystar in November 2024 after a 15-month review. Joanie accused him of running a smear campaign.
I just have to ask, how does an organization even function when the boardroom is quite literally a fractured family dinner table?
This raises an important question about how narratives get tangled up. To the critics, the marriage timeline, the $100,000 honeymoon, and these devastating abuse allegations all folded into a single narrative.
Right, it just blurs together for the audience.
Exactly. Even though the police found insufficient evidence for the abuse claims, the public saw a network leadership that no longer answered to anyone. The corporate governance completely collapsed into family drama. Because in a family-run empire, the person you are firing is your own son.
Yeah.
And we move from that internal collapse of the family straight into the external collapse of Daystar's broadcasting partnerships.
Yeah.
Because they started hemorrhaging their biggest names.
The exodus was massive.
Yeah, Love Israel pulls their program. And they publicly cited Daystar's standards on morality, marriage, and financial stewardship as the reason. And over a dozen programmers followed suit. Huge names, like Joyce Meyer and Ray Comfort.
Losing Joyce Meyer is a structural blow. That audience goes wherever she goes. It was a complete unraveling of alliances that Daystar had built over decades.
Which brings us to the unresolved ending of all this.
Right.
Joanie Lamb passes away on May 7, 2026, at age 65 from a back injury and private health issues. Doug Weiss was by her side,
Yeah.
but Susie Lamb claimed the family wasn't even called to say goodbye. And Jonathan was not a featured speaker at his mother's memorial. So what does this all mean?
It's just a profound tragedy.
It really is. Like, think about the tragic irony here for a second. Joanie built a global empire meant to project faith and family unity, but passed away with her own family seemingly unable to find their way back to each other.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you just look at the state of Daystar at her death. Yes, the network is still profitable. They can still fly executives on private jets.
Right.
But it has been completely stripped of its programming partners, its donor goodwill, and its outside credibility. The controversies were never truly resolved. They just calcified and became permanent fixtures of the legacy.
Yeah, they really did. Well, we've covered a massive amount of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We've traced this multi-layered saga of Joanie Lamb and Doug Weiss, a story where private grief, sudden romance, corporate credit cards, and just devastating family allegations all violently collided on a global stage.
It's a textbook example of how fragile institutional power is when it's tied to personal relationships.
Absolutely. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over today. We've spent this whole time analyzing the people on the screen. But what about the audience?
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
When a media empire is built entirely on the moral authority and public image of a single family, is it ever truly possible to separate the business from the messy, flawed, unpredictable reality of human relationships? Or, if millions of viewers demand absolute moral perfection in exchange for their donations, is a collapse of trust simply inevitable the moment the cameras turn off?
Wow. Yeah, that really forces you to look at the audience's role in creating that impossible pedestal.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives you consume, and we will catch you next time.